Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today what I wanted to talk about is how that June Nintendo Direct, which is what we're assuming right now when we finally get that next big general Nintendo Direct, not just a mini, not just a partner showcase, not a Mario Movie Galaxy Direct, not a Tomodachi Life Direct, not something smaller, but the full course meal, the big general, the Super Nintendo Direct. In June, it's believed to be happening. There are reasons behind it. We'll touch on some of these things throughout the video. But what I really want to harp on here is how long we've waited for this, everything that's been kind of building up to this, and how big of a deal this Direct kind of has to be. Like, we're looking at something here that you would think, given how long we've waited, the circumstances given that it's the beginning of the Switch 2 era, the amount of announcements that need to be made for the second half of the year, you would think with all these things in mind, Nintendo has been preparing a presentation that would blow our socks off, that would be absolutely fantastical, incredible, epic. A Super Nintendo Direct, perhaps the best one yet. Maybe that's me overhyping things, not sure, but they have some things to make up for here. They have some things to do. So if this is how long we're going to have to wait for that next big show, then they really do gotta bring the goods, I would say. So I want to dive further into what kind of goods we're going to be looking at here, why I think it's June when this is going to be happening, and the amount of announcements that need to be made, and also how there might be something before that, but I'm not expecting a big general. Not until June. So there's a lot to sift through and discuss today. But here's that quick reminder, I have this goal to reach 60,000 subscribers. You subscribing, if you haven't already, would certainly make for a big difference. Of course, only do it if you find yourself enjoying my videos. So there's been a lot of conversation of late that a presentation has to happen really soon, because so many different games are getting rated left and right. It really feels like things are breaking apart at the seams here, because there's just so many different games out that seem to be ready to come out for Switch 2, but Nintendo has yet to make an announcement. We recently just heard about Starfield getting rated for Switch 2 in Taiwan. There's this Reddit post that's been going around by Educational Arm 7384, and they summarize all the different Switch 2 games that have been leaked or rumored or there have been ratings for. There are so many of them. It's a staggering list here, and a lot of these are from credible sources. If not like from a reputable person like Nate the Hate, then there's like literal, physical, actual evidence from ratings boards, things of that nature. It's truly a staggering, huge list of things we've heard about that are supposed to come to Nintendo Switch 2 at some point. And so you gotta think, when we're waiting for things like Monster Hunter Wilds, Starfield, or even games that we already know about officially that are coming to the platform, like Elden Ring, that was supposed to come out last year, was delayed, but we've now seen playable builds for it. It feels like they should be announcing something really soon, especially because From Software also has the Dust Buds coming out later this year. You would think they would want those games to be divided by at least a few months here, so time's running out. We're already in the middle of April. When would they announce the release date for Elden Ring? So they can then get that out there, talk about that for a little bit, promote that for a little bit, have some time pass, and then start promoting and pushing the Dust Buds for it to come out by the end of the year. Or even from Nintendo themselves, we have games like Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave and Splatoon Raiders, first-party big games that reportedly, according to rumors, are coming out this summer. They've been rated as well, which bodes well for those reports by Nate the Hate of the Switch 2 summer lineup, but it also has you wondering, well, when are they going to make these announcements? It would lead one to believe that a Nintendo Direct, a big Nintendo Direct, needs to happen soon. And if I wasn't paying attention to the insiders that hear about when Directs are to be happening, then I would think, man, we are so overdue for a big Direct, it has to happen soon. But when you do pay attention to what the insiders are saying, we have, for example, Attack the Backlog, who up to this point all their leaks have been correct, have been about Nintendo Direct dates. They heard about something that's a Nintendo presentation with third-party games happening this month, which leads me to believe it's for a partner showcase. They haven't been able to fully verify yet, but that's what seems to be the suggestion. And then we have Nate the Hate, who has said he has not heard about a big general happening for the next month or so. Based off discussions he's had, he's led to believe June is when it's going to happen. Now, that's not 100% foolproof, but you know, when you look at some other things, that may be what's going on here. So For example, we take a look at Zelda's 40th anniversary. I know some people are going to be in the chat saying, oh, well, Nintendo doesn't celebrate Zelda's anniversaries. That's factually untrue. They actually do it very consistently, just not how you want it to happen, but how it actually happens. So technically, Zelda's anniversary is in February, but Nintendo never actually celebrates Zelda's anniversary in February. What they tend to do, actually, they did this for the 35th, the 30th, and the 25th, they start making the big announcements in the summertime, June, and we start to see those anniversary celebrations throughout the second half of the year. And so, with that in mind, that consistent history in mind, I am led to believe that the official Zelda 40th anniversary celebrations will likely start happening in June, lining up with when Nate the Hate is thinking a direct could be happening, the big one, like a super general direct, based off the discussions he's had. And if we just take a look at how Nintendo handles things, typically, when you have like a partner showcase in the beginning of the year, that's kind of like the direct until the summertime, or until that next window of time where they would have a direct. Like we had an Indie World Plus partner showcase late 2024, right before the typical September direct time. We had to wait until March, late March, to get the next big general, which is also followed by the first Super Direct, a 60-minute long Nintendo Direct about Switch 2, the first one. Or we go back to earlier in the year, there was a partner to start 2024, but we had to wait all the way until June for it to have an actual big general direct. So looking at situations like that, given that we had a partner in February, even though it felt like Nintendo needed to announce a lot more, which is why we entertained the idea of something happening sooner, as we also discussed, when this was announced back then, or even when it was rumored back then before it was announced, that it might mean we have to wait all the way until summertime for the next big direct, even though that's not what I wanted to happen. But when you account for this, and you account for the Zelda stuff, and when you account for what Nate the Hate has heard, these three different things I do think kind of support the idea that we may have to wait all the way until June to get a big direct, the big one. But I'm also willing to entertain the idea that something sooner may happen. Now, if we do get a partner in April, I think that would go a little bit against this pattern I'm talking about these partners taking up a certain period of time. But there are just so many announcements that need to be made for the Nintendo Switch 2. I do think circumstances are different here. We've already acknowledged that Nintendo isn't handling things in the way they've handled it in the past. Expecting the traditional pattern is likely going to leave you disappointed. We should probably not be expecting the exact traditional pattern. They haven't been really following that for the last couple years. So I'm not going to rule out another partner for April. And I'll also say, while there are certainly reasons to expect this bigger direct in June, maybe the rumors are wrong. Maybe somehow a super direct is going to happen even sooner. I don't really want to focus on that because then everyone's going to get super excited and invested in this idea. But I don't want to rule it out entirely either. I think it's possible to consider that there is a need to make announcements, not just in terms of all these third-party things when there's so many different games that haven't rated, but also, yeah, Nintendo needs to make announcements for their games. We know about Splatoon Raiders, we know about Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. Those games have been rated. You would think an announcement could be coming soon. Soon might mean June, but yes, soon. Now, maybe there's like a happy middle ground here. Maybe Nintendo is going to have this Super Direct, but the Super Direct is not going to happen in June, but maybe like in May, like late May. That way we don't have to wait as long, and that gives Nintendo a little bit more time when they actually make these announcements to when they come out later into the summer. That's certainly possible. And I also acknowledge that perhaps some people kind of feel like it's been such a long time. The last time we got a big direct was September of last year. This is the beginning of the Switch 2 era. It's been more than half a year. You would think Nintendo would put out more bigger presentations. And so the idea of us waiting all the way until June or even late May seems like a lot. But I do believe in the reports about Star Fox getting announced this month to come out early on in the summer. And so if we get a big first-party announcement like that outside of a direct, then at least for me, and I think for a lot of other core Nintendo fans, that will be a nice holdover until that bigger presentation a little bit later on. But when we also account for that expected announcement, it does have you wondering, well, there are so many different things that supposedly need to get an announcement really, really soon. But for the sake of this discussion, let's operate under the assumption that what we've heard from Attack the Backlog and Nate the Hate are going to hold true here. We're probably not going to get the bigger direct until June, and maybe there's something like a partner or a mini, some kind of presentation that will announce at least a few third-party games in this month of April, and we'll get the Star Fox announcement from Nintendo through Nintendo Today or Twitter, and that'll hold us over until this bigger direct. When we do get that bigger direct, I think we are looking at another Super Nintendo Direct, and when I use that term Super, I mean a Nintendo Direct that's above 60 minutes in length. Like the last two general directs we've gotten have both been over an hour. These are the two longest Nintendo Directs we've ever gotten. It may be the case that Nintendo's changing the standard of the general Nintendo Direct. These general Nintendo Directs are huge presentations, 60 minutes long, with so many more announcements than the typical Direct. If we go back to prior general Directs, they would be about 30 to 45 minutes long, and the partner showcases are about 20 to 30-ish minutes long. These new Directs, these bigger ones, the generals, are on another level. And so this silence about this waiting we've had builds the anticipation for these longer, more densely packed presentations. And I think some people might be concerned about raising expectations here, but you know, I think it's fair to raise expectations. I think it is reasonable to expect something impressive from Nintendo here. They have a lot to answer for right now. They need to announce the second half of their year. They haven't given us any significant new first-party announcements since September of last year. We are overdue for some big announcements. I guess I'm ignoring Pokemon Winds and Waves, but that's not even coming out this year, that's coming out next year. And that was handled by Pokemon Company. So I think most will agree the point still stands. We are overdue for such a big direct, an epic presentation. And I do think this presentation is going to be epic. I mean, just going based off our expectations here, we're going to learn about Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. We're going to learn about Splatoon Raiders. These are two games we've known about for some time. Supposedly they're coming out this summer. Kind of a big deal. There are various supposed Switch 2 editions of some kind on the way. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Pikmin 4. I'll throw out another. Maybe Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Remake. We've seen that data mine for a higher resolution. Maybe that has to do with something. And there could be other surprise left field Switch 2 editions, or there's so many different games that could be enhanced for Switch 2 in some way. I'm not expecting this at this point, but you know, I think eventually there's gonna be a Switch 2 edition for Smash Ultimate, and that's gonna include some new content in there. That might be the most big deal, important Switch 2 edition we get. Possibly it's announced this year, but that's not my expectation. There's talk of a new Switch Sports. I think it's going to be like actually a new Switch Sports and not just a Switch 2 edition. That's kind of a big deal announcement. I would be very excited to see that. We have the reports of Star Fox. Even if it gets announced before a Direct this month of April, they're probably still going to want to talk about it again right before it comes out in this supposed Super Direct, right? So learning about that. The big holiday game, or at least one of them, Ocarina of Time Remake. We're going to see that. I imagine that will be the show closer. But before the show closer, Nintendo might want to mention other Zelda 40th anniversary plans, so there's a variety of things that may be announced there. They may talk about the movie. The movie has recently finished filming, so within the next couple months, they may be more willing to give us more details about this. And what about Switch 1 owners? I assume this ambitious full remake that we're hearing about is exclusive for Switch 2 to showcase the console, get people to buy the console. But Switch 1 owners still may want to enjoy the Zelda 40th anniversary celebrations. There's still going to be the build to the movie, and Nintendo's likely want to put out something for Switch 1 owners as well. What is that going to be? Finally, Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD? Maybe. Could be something else. Maybe a 2D Zelda offering. There's a few different possibilities here. And as I mentioned earlier, there are so many different third-party games that are supposed to come to Switch 2. A lot of really big deal, ambitious, high-quality titles. We've seen a variety of them run and look great on Switch 2, and more are seemingly on the way. Sure, maybe there's a partner showcase that happens this month of April where a few are announced, but it's just gonna be a few. There's never been a partner showcase where it's like, oh, that's all the different third-party games we've been expecting. No, it's just usually a slice, and there's still always more to be announced. I have to imagine there will be more announced in a bigger Direct that we're expecting at this point to happen in June. And if you've been following me for a while, you'll likely already know I expect more from Nintendo beyond what's been rumored. I think Luigi's Mansion 4 has a high likelihood, and there's certainly going to be some other surprises there too. Not saying those surprises would be giant deal announcements, but some smaller things, and Also, the Dust Buds, Nintendo is helping out to publish this game, get it out there alongside From Software. That's got to be talked about as well. That is a huge title. Like, if you think about it, Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, Splatoon Raiders, maybe a Switch Sports Resort, a Luigi's Mansion 4, an Ocarina of Time remake, the Dust Buds, these are all major titles that theoretically may all have significant portions during the big direct. Like, we're talking about something here that could be pretty substantial. That may seem like a ridiculous amount of games to focus on for a presentation, but when you wait this long to give us first-party announcements, well, maybe that's what needs to happen here. So yes, it is my expectation that Nintendo's going to have an hour-long giant general direct at the latest by the end of this month of June. They've done a great job of stalling here, but it has to happen. The announcements need to come. This is not the time to not announce things. This is the time to announce things, and by the way, Nintendo always announces things, so yes, the business will continue. They need to make money, they need to talk about their games so they can sell their games. So yeah, those announcements are coming, and it's interesting that we've waited this long, because I do think it sets things up to be pretty substantial when the goods are finally shown to us. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.